Greetings, class, and welcome to this video session where I'm going to be joined not only by Dr. Bonnie Johnson, but also Dr. Yvonne-Pratt-Johnson, who are both the authors, the editors of the book that you're reading in this class, Inequities in the Early Years. And so we were originally just going to talk to Bonnie, but I'm glad Yvonne is here too. And so I'm going to begin just with a quick question. Yvonne, how did you come up with the idea, or Bonnie, I don't know who came up with the idea or how you collaborated, but how did you come up with the idea or the need to create a book like this?
Well, would you like to start, Dr.
Well, I think
Pratt-Johnson?
we both were concerned about students who seem to be struggling in the classrooms, and we began to look into that. And we began to think about students who were in unfortunate situations, namely in poverty, and what are the implications for these students who were in the classrooms and how we might better serve them. But I think at first we want to just give a general introduction about students in poverty and how they fare in the classroom. We want to give some type of introduction to that.
And I agree with Yvonne, of course, but also I wanted to examine, along with Yvonne, how poverty affects various disciplines. And that's why we decided to involve several disciplines at St. John's University, because it does impact everything. It impacts business, health, you name it. It's something that needs to be examined across disciplines, I believe.
And I'll throw this out, either one of you can answer, or both of you. Are we getting better or worse, do you think, in terms of working against poverty and the threat it has for literacy learning of students?
Worse. I think it's worse. When I taught the last low-income school I taught in, nothing has really changed over the years since I left that school. In fact, the demands seem to be even worse, harder on teachers because they're always looking at test scores. Why aren't you raising test scores without looking at the funding? They don't even realize that some of the kids don't have 3 meals a day. They might get 2 at school with free breakfast, free lunch, but they don't get dinner. So the demand is for raising test scores, raising the bar. I still hear that after so many years, but I don't see the initiatives going into supporting the teachers and most of all the children in helping them. You can't learn on an empty stomach. You can't learn if you're sick, if you require dental care that you're not getting. So I would say worse. I have not seen any big programs that are trying to remedy the situation we have.
And I think also that teachers themselves, apart from the resources that they're not getting, Bonnie, I think in addition to that, they are not getting the support that they need in the classroom. The instructions that the teachers need to instruct their students. Some teachers believe that there's just one fix for all students, not realizing that perhaps they need to consider who they have in the classroom, how they might be able to best serve them in the classroom. The strategies, they're missing the strategies. So I think in that way, the students are still suffering as a result of their teachers not knowing how to instruct them.
The teachers aren't getting the support they need in the schools. The last school I taught in, we had 611 children. Most of them needed a great deal of help with their reading, and we had one reading specialist, literacy coach for the entire school. So we can teach children how to read. Dick Allington said that. We could teach every child how to read. But we have to have the teachers have to have the help in the classroom. I've always said, instead of spending money on high-stakes testing, put 2 teachers in every classroom, and then you'll see a difference.
Absolutely, I agree.
And Bonnie, also there is another population of students we have in our school system, namely the English learners, and that's that just adds to the another layer to everything too. How do I instruct my English learners? What do I need to know? How can I best serve them? How about students who are newly arrived into our school system? How do I begin to help them? I went to visit one school here in New York City, and a teacher had just received a new student into her classroom from Guatemala. She did not know any English, and where was she? In the corner of the classroom, facing her back, facing the class, and the teacher had given her something to color. Sixth grade. While the students were engaged in reading and in reading activities, that student was sitting in the corner coloring, and she had a stack of papers to color for the entire day. We need to better inform our teachers, give them the strategies. How do I integrate even the English learner into the classroom?
I noticed the title of the book is Inequities in the Early Years. Why did you select the early years, and do you think that's more important than, let's say, high school in terms of the inequities that we see in schools?
It's where it starts. The early years is where we see it. And I taught a Title I pre-kindergarten for several years in the summers, and I saw it even in preschool with the children, their vocabulary. It wasn't that they didn't have a large vocabulary, it's just the kind of vocabulary that's really not used in school situations or in school materials. We took the kids on several field trips because most of them had not really ventured outside their mobile homes or apartments. And one little guy said on the way to a dairy farm, "My dad goes to that tavern. My dad goes to that tavern. My dad knows about that tavern." Mm-hmm. So tavern was a vocabulary word that child knew in preschool. You don't see
and what community,
tavern.
What community was this? What state was this in?
This was in Wisconsin. It was in just outside of Madison, just outside of the capital of the state of Wisconsin. But it's everywhere. It really is.
No state is exempt from poverty.
No, not at all.
No.
And also in the homes, the question that we ask ourselves: what do they have in the home in terms of reading materials, writing materials? Some children come from backgrounds in the early years. They come into kindergarten, even into pre-K, knowing how to write their names, having been exposed to books, having been exposed to parents who they see reading in the home, newspapers. Who read to them at night? Maybe no one did. And I have met several students, young students who have read absolutely nothing. They have not had a book of their own. They have held a book for the first time in kindergarten or in first grade. And other children come from homes where they see parents read the newspapers. Parents read to them. They've held books before, and they are prepared to undertake kindergarten, first grade, second grade work. But our heart is for those students who have not been exposed to even going outside of their homes, not having a book to read even, and no one teaching them how to write.
Wow.
Yeah. So I also think I totally agree with what Yvonne is saying, but I also think that as children move through the grades, the effects of poverty just snowball. And it dawns on them after a few years that some kids have a lot more, and they have a lot more opportunities than they have. And even the little kids know that there's something wrong with that. That's not fair. That's not right. I had a graduate student one year, and he worked in a low-income junior high school. And he used to take, he was a coach too, he coached basketball. He used to take his team's uniforms home at night because they had one uniform. They couldn't change. Just one per player. He'd take them home at night and wash them and dry them. And they would go to other wealthier districts and see what the other teams had. Beautiful gymnasiums, all the equipment, more than one uniform. And so I think anger starts building among some students when they see that, because like I said, the little kids know it's not right, and so as the children get older, they really see the inequities in our lives.
Well, you shared with the class the photos you took at Rosebud, which I think was in rural
Redbud, yes, rural Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Right.
And so I'm just appalled that a school would look like this. But does the community, does the houses look like that too, or is the school just different?
Houses look like that too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just not the tax base.
No, there's not the tax base.
So I wonder if that shouldn't be instead of a community burden, it shouldn't be a state or national burden to have good facilities for schools.
It certainly should, and I've been arguing for that for years. But it seems that every politician who wants equal funding for schools does not get elected because the people with the money don't want to share that money.
I know we're seeing more and more charter schools and people abandoning public schools.
Right.
I was talking to one parent who was looking for a house, and she was forced to look outside the area she wanted because the schools were so poor they were rated 2 and 3. Now I know that those ratings are based upon test scores, but at the same time, there is a difference. I've taught in schools like that, and you really have to teach at a lower level, and a brighter, more up, a kid is left behind because of that. So I don't know what the solution is, but I do know that we feel better when we're in a nice place like this University of St. John's. It feels good to be here.
Nice.
And I know too that when I was teaching in a predominantly black community in Texas as a beginning teacher, and one thing I noticed, the people had really poor homes, but they would try to get a nice car, and they would drive out, and they would feel like everyone else. And so there was just a need, to escape poverty, but they're not able to do it, and we're not able to help them, or not willing to help them.
So entrenched. I mean, we in Redbud, we even lost the Walmart.
Wow.
The Walmart left because of lack of business, I presume, and a lot of my pupils' parents or guardians worked at Walmart, so there were jobs lost.
Wow, even a double whammy.
Yeah, right. So there really weren't many businesses there where people could work. There were a few fast food places and so on, but businesses don't want to move to an area like that, and there are no incentives to move there.
Well, Bonnie, you gave me a statement for the class to read about the recipe you think that probably caused this to happen at Redbud. But for both of you, what is the recipe we could use to make things better and help these kids?
Money. It all comes down to money. If we don't fund those schools, we'll see no improvement.
I agree with you 100%.
Money. And I hear often, I think we all hear, we throw money at the schools. Where does all this money go? None went to my classroom. None went to my colleagues' classrooms. I don't know where the money went. It went in test prep. We never were short of test prep materials.
Even now, I hear teachers who say that they have to pull money from their own wallets to buy chalk, to buy this, to buy that, to buy books for their classrooms. How long could that last? Right. And especially in our economy now.
Right, and those teachers are not making big salaries either.
Right.
And they have their own families to deal.
Exactly. So, yes, money comes down to money.
So we'll end on a positive note, and we can't help with that, but we can help be the best teachers we can. And my appeal for you as a teacher is, yes, know your strategies because they make a difference, but most of all, love your kids, because I think the affective domain is one way that we can lift their spirits and make them feel better about themselves. So that would be my parting words.
And you made me think of, I forgot exactly who said this, but someone said, and I always tell my students, I may not have remembered what you first said to me, but I always remember how you made me feel.
Oh,
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And
so again, that just supports what you're saying. We have to love them.
Yeah.
They feel that. They feel
thank
it.
you.
My final word, vote for people who support public education.
Amen.
I agree with that. Well, Dr. Pratt-Johnson, Dr. Johnson, thank you for writing this wonderful book, and thank you for appearing and chatting with my class today. And
my pleasure, and good luck to all of you.
And thank
good
you
luck
for
to
having
everyone.
us.
And thank you for being in our PhD program, because you're going to be the ambassadors for St. John's going forward.
Absolutely.
And for our Vincentian mission, which of course comes from the teachings of St. Vincent de Paul, a French priest, and what we're named after, and his mission really was to reach out and help the poor. So thank you for doing that.